Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Notts to talk about the Notts County Football Podcast. Unfortunately, we're back again with another after another negative result. But as always, I'm glad to be joined by Casey. How are you?
Yeah, well, obviously, other than the defeat yesterday, again, I can't complain, brother. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, I'm feeling a bit better today. Obviously, it was my birthday on Friday, and I was hoping for a good result yesterday to clear some cobwebs, I suppose you could say. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. I guess we'll start there because that's the main talking point at the minute, isn't it? Obviously, a 3-1 defeat to Crewe at home. We last week we said that we're going to come on and obviously hopefully not have overlooked them, but it looks maybe we did overlook them and they're a better side than we thought.
I'm not sure about overlooking. I thought the performance yesterday as a whole was borderline embarrassing. It's a shame, really, because, like I said, I said it online yesterday. It was pretty much like that Newport performance. We took 2 steps forward yesterday. It felt like we took 5 back. There was just so many. It didn't look like a very inspired, very motivated performance. There's too many players that just didn't look interested in being on the pitch. The amount of mistakes that were made yesterday, just individually, misplaced passes, running the ball out of play, just the borderline basics of playing football. We just didn't nail yesterday. And fair play to Crewe. That's not me saying they were bad. I thought they were brilliant in what they did. They defended the box very well. Not like they had, an awful amount to worry about in terms of what we were creating, because even in the last 10 minutes when we had the majority of the ball, we were like almost trying to pepper the box. It was almost half-hearted. We never really looked like scoring. I mean, the goal itself was a massive deflection that evaded the goalkeeper. So it's just as good as 3-0 as it was 3-1. And I think only that yesterday's performance, and I'm not sure it can get any worse than that. So I would say comfortably by far probably the worst performance of the season so far. Okay, yes, we had Gillingham, which was just as bad, but at least we looked like we wanted to play for at least 10 minutes at the start of the game. It's the same for Mansfield at home yesterday. We looked like we had no interest in playing football at all.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that they were very difficult to play against for me. I think they set up really well, and it made it hard to play through. But at the same time, you're right. I mean, obviously not to pile pressure on him, but there's a reason he got taken off after 25 minutes. There was, I think, within the first 20 minutes, Warner probably misplaced 2 or 3, quite simple passes or trying passes that he probably shouldn't be playing early and putting us under pressure. And I think that's where the issue comes, is that you can accept being beaten by a better team, and I'm going to be open. I think they're a better team than us, and I think that the result yesterday, they would have beaten a lot of teams yesterday, probably every team, whoever they come up against, they were very good. But I think the only issue is that too often and time again, we become the architects of our own downfall. The first goal is a set piece. We can't defend set pieces. We know that. The second goal is a mistake, isn't it? Two players going for a header. And it's just little things like that. Communication's not there clearly, and I think some of the relationships between the players maybe are. I'm not suggesting they're falling out, but I think there's not that harmony on the pitch, that we probably used to at times. Let's go through the goals then. Obviously, a really poor start. We started in the back four. I think everyone was happy to see that. So I don't think we can go back and criticise start with the back four. But the first goal didn't really matter about the formation we were playing because it came from a set piece. What do you make of the fact that we just can't defend set pieces?
Well, you said it yourself. For me, like, it's no secret now that we've been absolutely borderline, criminal at defending these sort of things. And you see the short corner being taken, and the lack of urgency and intensity to go and shut the ball down was almost a joke, because you know that, again, especially us, like as fans who see it every week, we know that we're not good at defending these sort of set pieces. So for me to see, almost like the corner, so it was obviously a short corner, to almost see them being able to walk into the middle of the pitch to whip a ball in was it pretty much summed up what we were watching for the whole 90 minutes. If I'm being honest, it didn't make any sense to me. It for me, if you know you're vulnerable and you're weak at defending corners, you should be out to the ball pretty much instantly to stop the ball coming into the box. At a minimum, you need to obviously rush the guy into making that cross early. So if you do that, the quality of the ball isn't going to be the same because he's had less time to think about it. Whereas in reality, yesterday he had the freedom of the world and probably all the time in the world to put in the ball that he did. And obviously, Dimitri flicks it, and it's 1-0 in 5 minutes. And then straight away, when you're playing against a team like Crewe and you go 1-0 down in 5 minutes, whether you're home or where you're chasing the game, and it's safe to say we were chasing the game after that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I think you've got to send two, haven't you, to mark that short corner. You've got to send two men. You see teams that we play a lot of short corners, they always send two out. I think with one, already you created an overload 2v1 then, and that's what happened. We had a player go short, he had to close the ball down, and then the other guy was free to then get past to, and then had all the time in the world, like you say, to pick out a cross. And it's little things like that, a little bit schoolboy, isn't it? And look, there's no surprise that Dimitri got on the end of it. He's one of their top scorers this season. I think he had 5 goals after the first 6 or 7 games, something stupid. He's had a brilliant season for them, and I think that I think what had happened is they'd done their homework on us. You could tell the way they set up. When we had the ball deep, they didn't press Ashby Hammond at all. When the centre backs got it, they put them under pressure. And you could see that from the set piece as well. They've obviously done their homework on the set piece. Their first routine they did was short because they probably noticed that we don't commit men in those areas, and it's cost us ultimately, hasn't it? So, disappointing opening goal. Obviously, after that, we had the second one, which comes from, I'd say, a mistake. I don't know whose mistake it is, but I think is it Bowen and Bossop both go for the ball, go for the header. The thing is as well, it was kind of horrible watching it because it looked like we had it dealt with, and then in literally half a second it changed and they were clean for a 1 goal, and obviously a penalty. I think people are saying online it's not. I think he's clean for. I think he's he probably is a pen for me. What was your take on that goal?
I mean, yeah, look, you touched on it there. I mean, it's very preventable. I think communication in any level of football is the bare minimum, and the fact that we evidently showed a moment in a game where we clicked 2 players on our team clearly didn't communicate, and I say it's obvious because it really is. I mean, whether it's Bolden or Bostock, you can see if you can see one going for the ball, literally you do not have to go for it at the same time, and they both did, and they both collided with each other, and then the man's in on goal. And obviously, there's obviously a lot of talk online. Or was it a penalty? Was it not? End of the day, when a goalkeeper flies out like that and an attacker goes around him, you're giving the referee a decision to make, and he made it. I mean, it's again when I'll refer back to it again because it was 2 steps forward and Newport 5 steps back yesterday because there was just so many errors, and that was a massive one that was costly. Because at the end of the day, if the communication is there to begin with, that goal is literally prevented. And it kind of summed up the day because, it was embarrassing. There's no doubt about it. You're playing at home in front of 11,000 fans, and you can't do the basics in football, which is communicate. And when you don't do that, you have incidents like what happened for the penalty, and then look what it led to. We're 2-0 down, and when, like we said, if you're chasing the game at 1-0 against Crewe, going 2-0 down 15 minutes ain't the smartest idea, which obviously we decided probably was our smart idea, and look how it turned out.
Yeah, I think for me it was game over at that point. I think you go 2-0 down against them, you're struggling, aren't you? You go 2-0 down against any team in the top 3, I think you're gonna struggle. And that brought about a change in system, change in shape, and made an early sub. I think that's a good time to bring in some comments. Obviously, as always, you can follow us on Twitter at Nots to Talk About. It's the number 2 in the app, and we ask for your comments on the situation. Harry says here, sometimes a bit naive for this league. Don't switch on from set pieces, which we've obviously talked about. Out of the game with 2-0 down. I like Maynard's willingness to change quickly. Still had a fair amount of chances. They were great, but didn't create much outside their goals, where they were clinical. I think he's made a really good point there about changing. I think we've got to give credit to Maynard for doing that. It was a bold decision to take Jayden Warner off, but it clearly wasn't working. And so we had to change. And yes, we didn't get back into the game, and we didn't get goals and everything from it. But I think the way it was going, they were on top, and it was only going one way, and we managed to stop that getting probably more embarrassing than it needs to be. I've seen a lot of comments, and I'm sure we'll get on to some of them, about changing formation too much. Do you feel like that's a thing, with changing formation too much, or do you think it's a little bit like Maynard, in a way, can't win because, we say one week we want him to change it up, and then, there's people saying he should have stuck with the back four, but we were getting battered with the back four, he changes it. So is it kind of like it's difficult for him because if he does change it, criticism, but if he doesn't change it, he gets criticised as well?
Yeah, look, like you pretty much said it there. It kind of fuels two arguments, doesn't it? Really, because if you like yesterday, for example, with the early change, it's almost as if to say, oh, like you can admire it to some extent, but ultimately we're 2-0 down at the point you're making that change. So clearly you've got it wrong. So that's what I'm kind of referring to when I'm saying it fuels both arguments. Because okay, you can admire his willingness to change so early on, but ultimately he's had to do it because the way he's set out hasn't worked, and we're 2-0 down at home in 20 minutes. And, it's the same for everything, really. I mean, when you look at how many times we changed formation in game, okay, yeah, it's brilliant. Like, we have a manager now who's open for change, but currently the change isn't bringing too much reward, and that's the problem for Stu. And look, I'm never not going to back him. I'll be the same for any manager that's in the dugout, because at the end of the day, the one thing I want for the club is success, and hopefully in the long term, which I'm sure it is definitely possible, whether we see or not is another different story, that Stu will be the man to bring success. But ultimately, with the positions and all the formation changes, etc., like, I just sometimes for me it just doesn't make too much sense. Like Jody started at the right wing, and then he was almost playing left wing back, and then second half he lined up at right wing again, and Maka was central, obviously towards the end of the first half, and then came back out on the left side, which didn't make too much sense to me because, to be fair, obviously we had to bring Jatta on, and he obviously had to play in as the centre forward, but in the last 10-15 minutes of the first half was probably our best battle of the game. That came from Jody being on the left hand side and Maka being through the centre. And then to throw that in the bin and go for it like we did in the second half was brave. It definitely didn't pay off. But I can see why people are starting to become a little bit frustrated with the formation changes, because although sometimes you can look genius, yesterday it looked like a bit of guesswork. And although it worked at Newport, obviously it was the same. We started with the same team yesterday as did at Newport. It definitely didn't look like the same team that played at Newport. And I don't know if it's a motivational problem, but when you look at the performance, you'd say there was a very clear lack of motivation. Where that stems from, I have no idea. Because the week before, obviously, we had that very good performance against Newport, got 3 points, went to Wrexham and probably deserved a point. And yesterday, it didn't look like a team who just had them kind of results. It looked like a team that had been battered in both games and was low on confidence. So I don't know where we go from here. But yeah, the formation changes, it's like I said, it fuels 2 arguments. That's the second thought.
Yeah, I think you're spot on about that. You can take it both ways, and I think both sides are fair as well. I think both have got good basis to the elements on both sides. Another thing you can maybe mention there, obviously we mentioned the fact it's the same team that played Newport. Are we looking a little bit fatigued potentially? Because Ian writes, we are too predictable. Squad depth is an issue. We should go for the middle more. Possession is meaningless if you don't take your chances. But I want to highlight the second point you made there. Squad depth is an issue. And yesterday, I thought, to start with, I thought when the team was announced, I thought the bench looked a lot stronger. Obviously, Colquitt couldn't have been on the bench because obviously he's on loan from Crewe, but he's to come back into the team as well. So it looked I thought the squad looked a lot better, but by the end of the game, you're once again questioning the squad depth. And like I say, maybe players are looking a little bit fatigued potentially.
Yeah, so I mean, look, it's one of them really. Like it does fall on the recruitment a little bit, because I understand the whole philosophy around the club to begin the season was to obviously work with a small squad. That's fair enough, but you can only do that if you get the rubber agreement of injuries, which we evidently haven't. I mean, Matty was obviously the biggest miss of them all. There's no doubt about it. But at least then, we've got Scott Robertson in there now, and he's doing more than his own to fill that void. But then you look at the other two. I mean, Kedwin, for what he offers in terms of his versatility as well as his goals, that was never replaced. Let's be honest. And again with Badge, I mean, he's sort of someone for me that would have played a massive role for us this season with his flexibility to play in the middle as well as the back line. And again, it's hard to find a bad dry, but you can at least try and get similar, which we just never seem to do. And again, look, maybe it's starting to look like a bit of fatigue, but this is not the time to be fatigued. Fatigue is when you expect to see fatigue is when you've, well, in our situation, hopefully wrapped up a playoff position. You can afford to take your foot off the gas for the last few games in order to prepare for the playoffs. But it don't look like, especially in this division, we don't ever look like we're gonna get that. And maybe it's a bit of a different, like with that point as well. Maybe it's something to do with the mentality. We've got a large crop of the players that were here last season. Obviously, towards the end of last season, we had that opportunity to take the foot off the gas in the last few games, prepare for the playoffs because we knew what our fate was. And this season, like every game right now, you need to win. That's the difference. And it's what I said. It's like what I touched on online yesterday. For me, we're rapidly throwing away what could have been another memorable season. It's no one else's fault but ours, and that was me kind of inferring on the recruitment. And it sort of links into what we're speaking about here, because recruitment has costed us. There's no doubt about that. I think, especially when you look at the availability of some players as well. I mean, I've loads of respect for Junior Marias, don't get me wrong. And obviously, he was pretty much a new signing because he joined so late last season. But you see, but he comes on like Newport. He came on for 10 minutes towards the end of the game. We haven't seen him since. That's clearly, for me, it must be a fitness problem. And that was a man who was signed on a 3-year deal. So if you're going to talk about recruitment, you got to talk about the longevity and the duration of contracts as well. So yeah, look, so I think a lot of people are rightfully, having a lot to say about the recruitment team, and hopefully they're taking some of it on board, because whatever happens this season, next season, you should, given some of the displays we've seen and what looks like we could likely throw away, you would expect a large number of changes, and that obviously will start with outgoings. And I don't know, obviously, I'm not sitting here and saying who's going to go, who's going to leave, because the club obviously have different ideas. But for me, if you're going to throw away the season that we look like we're going to create for ourselves in our first season back, you've got to look at strengthening, and hopefully the owners have got the money that it looks like they've got. So we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, Brian echoed your thoughts. He said, quite simple. Squad was too small, which now means players are burnt out and no depth to the bench. Montague's team not finding us any defenders good enough for League Two, despite countless warnings in pre-season, August and January. Palmer being out for the season, irreplaceable. And you mentioned Palmer there. And another comment similar, Kieran said, no desire to win, challenge for second balls. When going long, not being able to hit the target frequently enough. Backline back off too much. The one positive side, though, is that Robertson and Palmer next season will be strong. And I wanted to mention him. You touched on him a little bit. Scott Robertson, and you mentioned him. How good is he becoming? How important? I know he's a lot of comments saying he's not played past 70 minutes. And I kind of get that as well. I think from my point of view, what I would say is the 70-minute sub. I think it's because you don't want to take, if you're chasing the game, you don't want to take off Crowley or McGoldrick or Langstaff or anyone like that. But what do you think to Scott Robertson's performances, and how good has he been as a bit of a positive note for the last few games?
I think the best praise you can pay him yesterday, he was one of two players that can leave that pitch knowing that they gave it all to try and get a positive performance. And I put him in the same bracket as Jody. Whereas, look, Jody didn't have his best performance yesterday, but you couldn't look at him on that pitch and tell me he wasn't trying to create things, trying to be his normal self. Crewe, just to begin with Jody, Crewe clearly had a plan for him. And the fact that it was so evident, there was no support for him really on any side, other than when the Mane came on. But the Mane, it was pretty much what you've seen from Aaron the whole time. You know, if Aaron was a bit more dynamic and a bit more wanting to go forward, Jody would have so much more freedom. But because there was another clear lack of that, Jody's always isolated with 2 men on him. It was an easy day for Crewe. But again, Jody was trying to create things, you know, especially towards the end of the first and second half, and it just wasn't meant to be. But Robertson, obviously, he got man of the match yesterday, and rightfully so, because for me, it's not very hard to look good in that team. But at least Scott Robertson can come away and say he was one of the only players that did at the end of the day. And look, he's obviously constantly getting better. And that, like, for that comment you just mentioned there, yeah, him and Palmer next season will be fantastic. And I think what Scott's going, if we carry on this form, what Scott's going to learn is how to play better in the nitty gritty sort of times. Even though I think he already is that perfect nitty gritty midfielder. But obviously, when Matty comes back, it's a whole different playing field because the amount of freedom he allows. And look, I said this to a friend yesterday. It wasn't online, but you've seen a massive drop in Crowley's performances, and I think that's obviously due to. I think that's a massive part of the Palmer injury, because when Matty was on, Crowley was never a deep line playmaker as he looked like he was trying to be yesterday, because Matty had all that covered. The amount of freedom that Crowley had, it was almost like a spare man. That's why he was always the late arriver for the headers that he scored in the season, and he always had so much time on the ball. It's no secret that Matty was a big miss. Like, we can say it all the time. It's not going to change the fact that he's out for the season. It's not going to hurry him back. And obviously, the guy we mentioned there, Scott Robertson, he's caring. He's had very good opening games of his spell here, and he looks like he's going to be the man to fill that void for us. Not obviously impossible to fill it to the max, because look, if a Matty Palmer was easy to come by, we wouldn't have been worried at all about his injury. So he's not going to be able to do that, but he's at least looking like he's going to feel part of it, and sometimes part of it is better than none of it. So you got to take that bonus, I guess. But yeah, Scott yesterday, can't really fault him. What I can fault is the decision to take him off. Thought after that obviously Jim came on, but Jim's a bit more of the aggressive side of things, so he was obviously, he got his goal, fair play to him, but he's very much the progressive midfielder he likes to be anyway. And then that also leaves you vulnerable at the back, where I think Scott's the perfect holder, and where I think we lost a lot of midfield sort of shape when Scott left the pitch. But at that point, you're chasing the game anyway, so you might as well chase it more. And yeah, it was overall disappointing decisions on a disappointing day.
That brought us on to the third goal as well. Just quickly to mention that, obviously disappointing again to concede a third. I think we kind of were on top before that, but like you say, we didn't really threaten them, even though we had more of the ball. It wasn't. We had a couple of chances, I think, than half chances, and but obviously the third goal goes in again at the near post, and from where I was sat, you maybe feel like getting beat at your near post is a disappointment, and again that's to do with goalkeeper recruitment, and look, I think Ashley Hammond's come in and done a good job, but again there's questions online about that. One question I want to throw to you is about recruitment. Do you think that there needs to be a bit of a change in there? Do you think that maybe the management team could have more of a say? Because obviously you've seen players like Aidan Baldwin was a Luke Williams signing, and he's done really well. Do you think that there should be some of a change, or conversely, we've just spoken about Scott Robertson who's come in, and obviously he was a recruitment team signing, and he's done very well. So is it more of the same in the summer, or do we think there should be more involvement from other people as well?
I don't think there necessarily should be more involvement from other people, such as your managers, etc. Because we showed last season that, you know, the manager doesn't have to have too much of a say, and you can still have a very successful year. And I think also, if you allow a manager that time, you know, and to have his say, to bring in his own players, you then run the risk of, okay, you can do that, but then in your first 8 to 10 games of next season, if it's not going well, you're probably looking at getting rid of the man in charge and bringing in a new man. And then at that point, that man comes in and obviously takes on a crop of the players signed by the previous manager. Might not fit his style of play, although it's completely different at our club now, because there's always that clear philosophy which I do think needs to change a little bit because I think we're so easy and predictable to work out and play against nowadays. So we need different ways of going about it. But for this question alone, I don't think you needed too much more input from anyone other than upstairs. They just need to start getting it right, you know. I think, especially when you look at our goalkeeper situation. By the way, as well with the goalkeeper situation, Aidan Stone is not a bad goalkeeper. Like for me, he's definitely not a bad goalkeeper. I just think he's had his confidence shot on too many different occasions now, and that's a debate for the other day. But in terms of recruitment, if you start giving the man in charge the power to recruit in the philosophy and what we believe in as a football club, it's gonna spiral down eventually because no manager's gonna be here forever, as we've found out previously. And if you do that and start letting him recruit their own players, say if you give Stu the opportunity to bring his own players, he brings in some lads he had from Wheelstone who are capable of playing in a team that's challenging for promotion in League Two, and then Stu leaves for whatever reason, you bring in someone else, and then they don't fancy these players. He's got 3 or 4 players you don't want to use at that point. So I get what people are trying to say in terms of, do they need any more involvement? For me, it would just not be a very good idea, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, one man that did come on and was part of the recruitment in January is Alassana Jatta, and obviously he had a positive impact, I would say. He looked bright and looked lively, and obviously he's not quite match sharp yet. What did you make of his debut? You know, obviously he came off the bench because McGoldrick went off injured, and hopefully McGoldrick's fine, and it's another injury to add to the list. But Jatta himself caused a few issues, I would say.
Yeah, well, look, obviously you said it there. He's probably not to match fitness. He's only been through the doors properly, a bit more than a week. And to be fair, although it probably weren't the finest display from a striker, one thing I will say is whether it was intentional or not, or if it's something we're going to see more and more from it, is the fact that he looked like an horrible player to play against. I mean, the run that he made to break the line was almost frightening because you knew at that point no one could touch him because anyone that made any sort of contact, it was a foul, and then you probably run the risk of a red card or a penalty. Obviously, the keeper made a brilliant like sweep if you like at the ball, but then he had to receive treatment. And I'm not saying but go around kicking players, but we do miss that kind of grit and nastiness, and that's obviously another criticism of mine under recruitment is that we haven't recruited much like grit and nastiness, and for Jack to come on and throw his weight about, and it was something that we're not used to seeing, but it's a side of the game that we could do with. I don't want players that are nice to play against. I want a player that comes onto the pitch and as the defender that he's going to rough you about. He's up for a bit of a tumble. And Jatta looks like he will be up for that. I mean, yeah, he was booked. I can't really remember what for, but yeah. Look, I mean, for me, obviously, in terms of what his input to the game, he gave Crewe something to worry about. Obviously, that's natural. Okay, yes, he didn't really have too many clear-cut chances, but ultimately that will come with more time to gel with the team and match sharpness. What you saw yesterday was obviously a man who, like I said, he looks like he's going to be up for the fight. He looks very aggressive, very strong, and doesn't really look like he cares too much about, being friends with the opposition, which I think we are sometimes too friendly to play against, especially like times like yesterday. We just made it far too easy. You can say that about many performances. So Jatta, I guess, look, maybe not the impact you wanted from the bench, but you saw signs of a player that we haven't had through the doors here for a while. So that's a massive positive you've got to take.
Yeah, I think you touched on 2 really key things there. First, the fight and desire, and I think that's what Scott Robertson's brought in with him and Jatta. That's why Robertson's getting so much praise. He's got a bit of bite about him, and Jatta was the same. Like he was tussling with the centre backs, and he got yellow card, I think, for something off the ball, kind of back into a player or whatever it was. But he was up for it, and that's what he was one of he stood out because the effort levels, maybe not effort levels, but it just seemed like a bit of a lethargic performance, and he was energetic, and he he put himself about, like you say. And I think the other thing to mention is that those runs in behind, he was always looking to make that run. The timing of his run was pretty good as well. And as you say, when he gets more match sharp and used to the team that we're playing in, he'll get used to making that run when he knows he'll understand the triggers of, Crowley's got the ball, he passes when I do this and make that run. And I thought that his willingness to get in behind was fantastic and really positive. And I guess we can end this part of the section of Crewe on a positive. Obviously, we got a goal, probably the luckiest goal we're going to get all season, but it does feel like we don't get a lot of luck at times. And I guess every football fan will say that about their team, but at the minute it feels like it's going that way a little bit. Obviously, Jim O'Brien comes on and scores from however far out it is. I'm not sure it's the best goal of his career, but he's got to take it, I suppose.
Yeah, he does. I mean, look, he came on and made his impact, so fair play to Jim. The one thing you ask who he subs to go and change the game, and although that game was pretty much unchangeable, he at least gave it a fair shot and he got his goal as an award for it. But, yeah, you mentioned there, sometimes, we don't have too much luck, but sometimes your performance will get you that sort of luck. Yesterday's performance, we didn't deserve any sort of luck. The only luck we got from yesterday's performance was the fact that it weren't more than 3 conceded. That's the truth. And look, I hate coming onto this podcast and being negative, but I mean, if anyone watching thought that it was going to be a positive manner today from either of us, I mean, I'm not sure how you would have expected that if you was there yesterday and understood what we was watching, because it was men against boys for a large part. And look, that obviously ties into the debate online, which is obviously mid-table this. Look, if we finish mid-table, that's fine for your first season back. For me, and I stand by this as well, mid-table would have only been fine this season if we were a mid-table team for the long term. The fact that we've been playoffs for months now, and we look like we're dropping out of it and rapidly falling away from it, that is for me disappointing. And the one thing I'm starting to notice a lot online, and sorry for going on a tangent here. Obviously, it was about Jim, but it's something I wanted to touch on. One thing I've noticed online is the people that seem to be happy with mid-table are expecting everyone to be happy with mid-table, and that ain't fair. Full stop. Like, you can be happy with mid-table all you want. If that suits you, then fair enough. But don't tell people that they're being optimistic and expecting overachievement for us to finish the playoffs. And there were spells of the season we were top of the division, and for large spells of the months of the season we were playoffs. For me, to finish outside of them after being in there for so long is inexcusable, because what it shows is just, if we don't finish in the playoffs, it obviously shows a clear drop in form, a clear drop in performance, a clear drop in mentality. That's 3 things that are pretty much inexcusable for a playoff team. So for me, you can't if you're happy with mid-table, that's fine, but you can't try and convince people to be happy with it as well, because it's just not going to happen. For me, you have every right to feel disappointed with how things are going right now, where we are in the division, because without trying to be funny, we've gone from 5th, at the end of December, to 13th in the middle of February. It's not good enough. It's as simple as that. So again, you can be happy with mid-table all you want, but don't try and convince someone to be, because at the end of the day, going from 5th to 13th is pretty inexcusable. But as for Jim, obviously your question was about Jim. We'll go back to Jim. Look, you know what you're going to get from Jim. Bounce of energy when it comes onto the pitch, no matter the score. He's not scouting through and through for a reason. He's been here 5 years for a reason. He clearly cares, and you know what you're going to get from him. Exactly when he comes onto the pitch, you're going to get a lot of care, a lot of fight, a lot of passion, no matter what the score is. And that's why he's so valuable to have, because you need that sort of player around the club. And that's why I was happy that he signed the year deal in the summer. I don't know if you'll see him here next season. Hopefully, he do in some form of capacity. But I don't know about the playing side of things, because I think the 1 year deal kind of summed that up. I think he was probably on his last year, whether it's here or at least as a player. I think he wants to retire anyway. I could be wrong, but it'd make perfect sense. But yeah, fair play to him yesterday. He looked like a bright spark in a very dull fire, if you like.
Yeah, no, I think you made some really good points there. I think the start, the way we've dropped off, I think that's what's probably hard to take. I think that like you say, having been a mid-table season team all season, then I think people would be a lot more on board with it. I think the fact that we showed signs of promise and have dropped off, and also the fact that we have got players in the squad. Langstaff and Jones, for example, top scorer, top assister. We've obviously got players capable of being towards the top of the table. Just we haven't got it all over the pitch. And I suppose we'll move on from Crewe, because obviously we've picked the bones of that now, and we've got to try and look forward. And I think one thing that's important to note is the teams we've played under Maynard. We've had 6 games, and we've played first, third, fourth, 6th and 7th, something like that. Yeah, we played 5 of the top 7. We've still got to play 2 of the top 7, but fortunately, the next game is against bottom of the league, with Sutton. I don't know if you've seen it. I only saw it this morning. Sutton manager Steve Morrison had a bit of a altercation with their journalist, their local journalist. Yeah, it was very interesting, and he's clearly under pressure. They're bottom of the league, and yesterday, the time of recording, they dropped points against Colchester, one of the teams that they kind of can chase down. How do you view this game? Is it a must-win, or is it? It's obviously a big opportunity to sort of get a positive result, because with all due respect to Sutton, I know they absolutely battered us at their place, but that was a long time ago, and they're bottom of the league. So the only team we've played that are below us in the table, we've beaten under Maynard. So do you have a positive feeling about Tuesday?
Look, Tuesday is a must win. Like, I say that slowly and clearly so it makes sense for everyone watching. Tuesday is a must win. If we do not win that game, I can't even imagine the state, not even just the online reaction, the stadium reaction. Look, you are, no disrespect to Sutton, by the way. They did a job on us on the opening day of the season. We can't forget that. But in football, you are where you are for a reason. These are bottom of the league for a reason. You turn up and play against them in the not side that we know we can be, it's game over in the first half. Difference is you turn up against how we did against Crewe, and Sutton have the quality in their team, although it hasn't looked like that. They've got some decent players, Amari Patrick, Duke McKenna. Like, we know Duke McKenna from his time at Torquay. These are players that are going to hurt you if you give them the opportunity. No matter, look, you can be where you are, where you want to be in the league, but you will still have teams that can hurt you. It's as simple as that. And especially when you've been hurt by this team already this season, quite badly on the opening day of the season, you can never rule out what they have. I think if Notts don't turn up, and this obviously it's sad to say it, but it's a reality. It could very much be likely that a Notts team don't turn up. There's a possibility that we will drop points in this fixture. And again, look, if you think Maynard's under any pressure now, not winning this game on Tuesday would multiply that pressure at least by double, if not triple. So he has to win it. There's no doubt about that. It's our game in hand, so win it and you're back within a point of the playoffs. But ultimately, if you don't win it, I mean, it would. The thing is, the worst part is I can honestly sit here and imagine just not winning it. That's the problem, and that's not even probably just in me. That's the whole feeling of the fan base. You can never be sure on this game now, because if you honestly, if we had this fixture after the Newport game, I'd have been like, yeah, not to walk away with this with a comfortable 3 points. But the difference is we're coming off one of the worst performances of the season, and again you're looking for that massive lift. Yes, okay, it's the perfect opponent because you're playing the bottom of the league when you need to win, but it means nothing in this division, as we found out, because you look at even the teams around them, like the Colchesters. I mean, we've been beaten away there, and Grimsby's, we beat them at home, but we drew 5-5, and Grimsby have scored 9 goals at home in the new year, and 5 of them have been against us. That's a stat that still baffles me. I hate saying it because of the reality of the embarrassment of it, but it's true. And look, we need to win this game. Me and you both know we need to win this game. Everyone watching this knows we need to win this game. Everyone going on Tuesday night knows we need to win the game, and the players need to put in a performance that shows you that they understand that they need to win this game, and hopefully we get that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Hopefully we do. But I think something you mentioned that was really important was the fact that, obviously you mentioned before, we dropped from 5th to 13th in a matter of seconds. But that's how quickly, like you say, if we win this game, we've got a point off the playoffs. And that's how quickly things can change. I think Walsall yesterday won. They were 16th at the start of the day, and they're up to 9th in the table now, and I think they're a point off the playoffs. So that's how quickly it can change. So obviously, like we mentioned last episode, don't want to get too high with the highs after Newport. You know, we're so buzzing, but also don't get too low with the lows because, yes, not going to come on in and say, oh, yeah, we were great against Crewe. We weren't. But it's not over. It's not all doom and gloom. It's not over yet because, like we've mentioned, one result can change it. And I would like to think that we'll get that result on Tuesday night. One player, obviously, that is a threat for them, Harry Smith. He missed a penalty against Colchester, which I think sort of piled the pressure on them. A big win, big game for them that was, and it would have been 3 points had he scored that. But he scored at Meadow Lane last season, albeit it was the easiest goal he's ever going to score when he played for Barnet in that victory for us. And obviously he was a player that got a lot of attention from our fan base for his reaction to Aidan Stone's sending off. But one thing I want to actually about that before we wrap up is not necessarily about him as an individual, but obviously he's a 6 foot whatever striker. I think he's about probably the same height as you are, and obviously defending the box is not our strong point. So is that a worry for you that they're going to get crosses into the box? They've got a big target man who can score headers.
Yeah, look, they're a team at the minute that are clearly desperate to get 3 points, and they will go to any extent to win it. Now that's the difference because relegation scraps. You sometimes you throw your ideas in the bin and just try and put in a performance that's going to earn you some form of points, whether it's 1 or 3. And when you've got someone like Harry Smith up front with the height and the presence that he owns and possesses, you're going to try and utilise that, especially against a Notts team that are clearly aren't comfortable in defending these sort of things, and against a guy who can throw himself about. He's another striker, pretty much like what we have with Jatta, who's always up for a bit of a fight. He's got that side and bite to him, that sort of that idiotic side of him, and we've obviously seen that with his reactions to the stone red card. So look, and again, we spoke about it previously with the quality they're having sort of their midfield to the central attacking areas with Patrick and Duke McKenna. These sort of players, they're always going to look to provide service. And although again they're bottom of the league, you can't disregard or rule out the potential of what they can obviously offer in terms of threat. And again, without wanting to touch on it again, we were beaten 5-1 there, so that'll always be in the back of the mind on Tuesday night. But yeah, look, the 5-1 was 5-1. That 5-1 should be used as motivation for the players that were involved in the squad on that day to get one back over on them. Not that this squad should need motivating, because it has a lot of quality players, and there are a lot of players that deserve to play higher up, and a lot of players that have played higher up. So they should know what it takes to be motivated. Right now they don't look like it. So look, you've got a clear catalyst in your motivation that you've been beaten 5-1 by these guys in front of you on Tuesday. So go out there and try and replicate the same result for yourselves against them. That's what I hope will happen. But whether it does or not, we'll see.
Can I get a score prediction from you? I know it's going to be hard to call, but can I get a score prediction?
Look, I'll go a scrappy 2-0 for us. And only in the sense of scrappy that I can't see it being the most convincing performance. But obviously, you have to back us to win the game. And look, that might sound brave after what we've seen at the weekend, but ultimately it's a game we have to win. And with that sort of pushing my prediction towards the winning side for us, but it's not going to be. Well, I can't see it being as convincing as what we're hoping. So I'd say scrappy 2-0, goal in either half. Don't know who's going to score them. And yeah, what about yourself?
Yeah, maybe it's blind faith from me, but I feel like we've got to win it, and I feel like we should win it, and that's no disrespect to them, and obviously I understand our form. We've just spoken about it for the last 40 minutes, but I think that we've got to win in terms of they're bottom of the league, and you should, the way we play and how good we can be. I've just got a bit of blind faith perhaps that we're going to pull out a performance, and I think that we played against Newport, and again, there's no disrespect to Newport, they were in good form at the time, but they're a bottom half side. Sutton are a bottom half side, and I know we are now for the first time in however long, because we're in 13th. But we've got the quality. Teams know when we're on our form, and when we play how we want to, we can beat a lot of teams. I would say, I'm not going to say any side because we've not got points against the top teams, but against the teams that are perhaps the lesser sides, and I think that's fair to say considering they're bottom of the league, we should have the quality and the wherewithal to win. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win. I think they might even score first, to be honest, and I think that if they do, the reaction would be not great around the stadium. But I think that our quality should show. But like I say, like we always say, if we get it wrong, we'll come on here and hold our hands up. And as I say, maybe I'm having a bit of blind faith there with still believing that we're going to pull out that good performance. But I just think we're too good of a side not to go there. Just as we wrap up now, thank you for if you've stuck with us this far. Obviously, apologies, not the most positive episode, but we have to keep it 100% authentic. And at the minute, it's not been the most positive mood around the place, Meadow Lane, of course, because of the results. But all your support is greatly appreciated. Obviously, subscribe and follow, and wherever you're listening, we do really appreciate it. And keep leaving the comments as well, and hopefully we can look to get hopefully an interesting guest for you maybe coming up this week. We'll see. Plans are in place over the next few weeks to try and start getting some guests on and getting a few extra things on. So thanks for sticking with us, guys, and it's been great so far. And I think I'll hand over to you to wrap up, mate.
Yeah, look, just one thing I want to add. Like again, Tom mentioned it there. It's not obviously the best episode in terms of positivity, but we can't be that way, especially how we played yesterday. And although it sounds very negative on air, look, obviously we both want success and we both want wins. Like it sounds cliche to say, but you spend a lot of money on a football season. Getting to all these games, travelling, etc. Like, of course, we want success. Like we wouldn't want anything else for the football club. So again, look, recording these sort of episodes ain't the best, but like we're not going to turn a camera on and be positive about being turned over 3-1 at home. It's just not going to happen. So, and we both want obviously Stu and his team to succeed, and there's no doubt about that. But you have to be realistic right now, and you can't look too far ahead. You have to look at what's happened. Obviously yesterday, and that was the whole point of the episode, to come on then speak about that. And we were like I said, borderline embarrassing yesterday. So we have to address it. You can't come on and you paint pictures because there's not many artists on the pitch for us at the minute. So yeah, it's just one of them. But look, like Tom said, keep up the support. Podcast is going very well. Obviously, we're very grateful for it. And normally I would say thank you and obviously keep it up and come on, you pies. But I'm going to say thank you and please win, Knots.